Hey folks, how you doing? This is Dan, the World Traveler again. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my trip to Japan in October of 2024. I flew from Indiana to Japan, but it's a little more of a story than that. I flew to from Chicago. The main flight was from Chicago to Tokyo. And before I tell you about Japan, I want to tell you about the flight to get there. I was lucky enough to sit by the window, so I had a nice window seat, and I got to look out the window the whole way. But 90% of the time you look out the window on an international flight, you're looking at either clouds or the ocean or something that's not very exciting. But what was exciting was looking at the maps, how you go on a big, long international flight and they give you, a choice of movies or whatnot. They give you a screen. And they also, you can choose to look at a map, and the map will show you where the plane is. And you think, if one may think that if you fly from Chicago to Tokyo, it's a straight shot and you're going to be over the Pacific Ocean most of the time. Well, actually, it's when you take an international flight, and I don't know whether it's got, what the reason is. I'm not an expert on this, but it's more of a curve. It's not a straight line. It's more of a curve because the plane went up through Canada and over Alaska, over the Bering Strait. I don't think we went over. I think we got pretty close to Russia, but I'm pretty sure we didn't go into, I think we got close to Russia. But my point is that it's not a curved. When you take a commercial flight from, across around from somewhere in the United States to somewhere in Asia, it's not a straight line. If you look on a map, it's more of a curve. That's that's what I took away from that experience, but pretty interesting nonetheless. Anyway, Japan, let's talk about that. Japan, I was in 3 places. I was in Mount Fuji, a little town called Nagano. Well, it's about 350,000 people. That's approximately 350,000. That's a small town in Japan compared to Tokyo. Tokyo is the biggest city in the world by some metrics, and I was in so 3 places: Tokyo, Nagano, and Mount Fuji. And Mount Fuji, I'll just tell you, I went to Mount Fuji when I was in Japan. And I'll tell you right now, if you go to Mount Fuji, this happened to me when I was there. I couldn't actually see Mount Fuji. I went to the area. It was Lake Kawaguchi. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but I went to Lake Kawaguchi, the little town right next to it, and I hung out there. And you couldn't see Mount Fuji, but it was right there. But it was a very, very cloudy day. And that happens a lot at Mount Fuji, is people go to Mount Fuji expecting to see Mount Fuji, but but a substantial percentage of the time, you can't see Mount Fuji because it's a cloudy day. So I took pictures with Mount Fuji in the background, but you couldn't see it in the picture because it was a cloudy day, and I would tell my friends and family, hey, you're just gonna have to trust me. Mount Fuji is behind me. I have no way of proving it to you. So, but still, I get to brag that I was at Mount Fuji, even though you couldn't see it. So, when you see people with pictures of Mount Fuji in the background, that those people got lucky, in my opinion. They were there on the right day when there wasn't any clouds. So that's, just be aware of that. If you ever go to Japan and you want to see Mount Fuji, you may or may not be able to see it because of the weather, unless you pay a guide and get really close to Mount Fuji. So that's just something to kind of think about if you ever go to Japan. Okay, and it's about a couple hours from Tokyo if you take a bus. There are people who say that on a clear day you can see Mount Fuji from Tokyo. I was in Tokyo for at least a couple days. I never had the opportunity to see Mount Fuji. Well, when I was right there at Mount Fuji, I couldn't see it. So obviously I couldn't see it from Tokyo. So just, kind of be aware of that. I went to Nagano also. Nagano is a small town, like I said, up in the mountains, up in the hills, I should say, about a couple hours north. I took the bus about 5 hours to get there, 4 or 5 hours to get there. I took the bus up there, and it was kind of felt like Flagstaff, Arizona, quite frankly. If I was going to compare Nagano, Japan to something, I'd compare it to Flagstaff, Arizona. Much more populated than Flagstaff, Arizona. But 360,000, which Flagstaff isn't near that. But very, very beautiful place. Nagano was absolutely gorgeous. Probably one of my favorite time in Japan was being around Nagano. It's a small town in Japan, relatively speaking, and the people are just really friendly. I notice when you go into a small town in Japan, people are just. By the way, you'll find a lot of people who don't speak English when you go to smaller towns in Japan. In Tokyo, you can English is more, you'll find more people speaking English. But in Nagano, I found people, my young people, couldn't speak a word of English, but very nicest people, very, very, very nice people, very hospitable. I don't think I had one bad encounter when I was in Nagano, but but you'll enjoy Nagano if you ever go to Japan and you ever decide to go to Nagano. Nagano is well known for the snow monkeys. I didn't see any snow monkeys when I was in Nagano. I was not there for it was the wrong time of year for that. But anyway, I was happy to see Nagano. There's plenty to see in Nagano besides snow monkeys, believe me. And there was a forest there, about a famous forest with shrines. I went walking around the forest. I forget the name of it, but it was near the Nagano area. Took a cheap bus, half hour to get there. There's a lot of folks who say, I want to say something in general about Japan. There's a lot of folks who say, oh, Japan's really, really expensive. You can't, a trip to Japan would be unaffordable. Well, first of all, I stayed in hostels, and I never paid more than $40 a night to stay in a hostel, which, that's, most people can do that. Most people, if you have a budget to go to Japan, $40 a night or approximately shouldn't, I think that's, you can handle that. But that's, if you want to spend money in Japan, if you want to, spend a lot of money, there's opportunities to do that. I just, it's not a must. You can go to Japan and get by it, not spending a lot of money. And I certainly stayed in hostels. I didn't eat at expensive restaurants. And the yen, they're on the yen right now. The Japanese yen, it's about 145 yen to the US dollar. And I was able, you go to Chipotle in the United States of America, get, a Coke and a bowl, a burrito bowl or whatever they call it, and you're going to spend $15-20. You'll definitely spend that or less at a Japanese restaurant in Tokyo or Nagano or what have you, or even, restaurants that cater to tourists and, restaurants that you think would be expensive, didn't blow me away with their prices when I was around Mount Fuji. But anyway, keep that in mind about Mount Fuji, Nagano, Tokyo. I found a great international church in Tokyo called Lifehouse Church. I could be wrong. I think that's the name of it, Lifehouse Church. It was in Tokyo. Found people from all over the world. I was fortunate enough to be there on a Sunday. And when I'm in a country on a Sunday, I usually look for the international church. It's a wonderful opportunity to meet interesting people and get some advice on more things to see in Tokyo. It's just, that was a good experience for sure. And to be aware, Tokyo has two airports, two major ones in Tokyo, Narita and Harita. I think I could be mispronouncing those, but Narita and Harita are the two international airports. I used both of them because once I made a side trip to Taiwan when I was there, and I also flew in and out from the United States, from Chicago, like I said before. And that's it. That's all I really want to say about Japan. I could talk to you about Japan for a couple hours. I wish I could have stayed there longer, but that opportunity didn't exist. I could only be there for about a week, but very enjoyable. I highly recommend Japan. I enjoyed it. It was great. And the fact that I don't speak Japanese, I spoke about a few words when I was over there, and they really appreciated it. They appreciate the effort to speak the Japanese language. I spoke a few words, but I certainly by no means any fluency in Japanese, and folks were okay with that. If you speak English and you don't speak any Japanese, if you have an open mind and you're willing to speak a few words of Japanese, and you'll be okay. You'll do just fine in Japan. You'll have a great time and you'll have a good experience. And I want to thank the people of Japan for receiving me. I appreciate it. Okay, this is Dan, the World Traveler. Have a great day and thank you.